the last 20 years trying to go to Mars, and now I get a chance to try to help go to Mars and come back. Right? And this will be the first time that we've done a round trip to Mars. And that's a lot of fun, I think. It's going to be pretty challenging, but a lot of fun. So first things first, why? Why are we trying to go to Mars and bring things back? Well, for one thing, we get a chance to ask and try to answer one of the big key questions that we have about ourselves as a human race here in the solar system and in space. And really that question is, was there life on Mars, on our next door neighbor, right? Our planetary neighbor that's right next door to us in the grand scheme of things in the solar system. Bringing back samples from Mars gives us an opportunity to try to ask that question and try to answer that question. But it's going to take a lot to do that. We've been pretty much sending rovers and landers and orbiters to Mars, but we pretty much need all those things, and maybe helicopters this time too, to bring things back. But one thing we definitely need is a rocket to bring that to Mars as well. So as a guy who likes to build spacecraft, I don't get to just build one spacecraft. We get to build a bunch, which is a lot of fun, and try to use them all together to do what we're trying to do, which is to bring back samples from Mars. This is going to be pretty difficult, and there's a lot of people involved as a result. This is not something that we can just do up the road by ourselves. There are folks across the nation at other NASA centers and many other contractors that aren't marked here on this map. And we're also teamed up with the European Space Agency as well, and they're making key contributions here to helping us do this grand relay race of bringing these samples back from Mars. So one of the fun things about this is that we've already started. We secretly started, pretty much with Perseverance. By sending Perseverance out there last year, it's already begun collecting samples in the Jezero crater area, and will eventually wander outside the crater area to take a whole variety of samples. And these are rock, soil, and atmospheric samples that we're encasing in these tubes to bring back here to Earth. So it's kind of the roving scientists out there trying to pick the best things that might have the best chance of helping us answer that question about whether there was life in the past on Mars. But why are we talking about past life on Mars, right? Well, from the work we've done before, both with Curiosity and Spirit and Opportunity, the Mars exploration rovers, and a lot of our orbiters, we know that Mars in the past was very much like Earth. Turn back the clock to about 3.5, 4 billion years ago or so. Mars was pretty warm and pretty wet place, very much like Earth was at that time, when life, the first evidence of life took hold here on Earth, that we could see that. So the question really was, it really is, if Mars was similar to Earth at the same time that life took hold here, could it have taken, the question really was, and can we find the evidence, and was that evidence preserved for us to find and bring back? Why Jezero? Why is this place so interesting? Well, if Mars was warm and wet, one thing we know about Jezero and its crater and its shape is that there's a good chance that there was a lake there in the past. You can see kind of in this artist rendition, an inflow channel of water going into this crater, filling it up, and then the outflow of that from that crater kind of draining away. This is something that happens kind of on Earth too, in these areas. But over time, Mars has gotten drier and more desiccant over time and colder. So the surface water, right, the warm, wet place that Mars was, much like Earth 3.5 billion years ago, kind of went away and left us with a dry, desiccant place and cold for the most part. But it has left behind some evidence in some places that might be interesting for us to look. If you squint carefully here, if you look at the top, kind of the 10, 11 o'clock portion of that crater, you might be able to see a delta that was deposited by that inflow, right, that river coming into this crater and depositing a delta. What's cool about deltas here on Earth? Well, we're bringing a bunch of sediment from a whole bunch of other places. We're allowing it to deposit nice and slowly in water. It's a low energy deposition environment. So we can encase a lot of the kind of evidence that we might be looking for in the rock that's creating the delta that's left behind. So remember, even if we had evidence of life, or there was life in the past, we need to find that evidence now, and we need to make sure it wasn't destroyed in the meantime. So deltas are great places to look for that. There's pretty much not a delta on Earth that doesn't have some sign of life in it, being the way that they trap organics and other things in them. So that's why we really wanted to go to this site. We take a closer look at that delta in a bunch of kind of different wavelengths, about looking for different kind of organics and other chemistry associated with water. We can see that this is pretty much the best place on Mars that we could find to go look for the signs of past life. You can see it's pretty clearly a delta there, right? You see that inflow from the left side of this picture there, dropping that delta nice and easily on the crater floor. And that's this delta that was set up in the bottom of this crater lake. This is a pretty gnarly place to land. If you've looked at places we've gone before, they've tended to be parking lots, right? We tend to look for places that are nice and flat and boring. As a landing guy, that's what I want, right? I want to go to runways. I don't want to go to helipads. I don't want any of this crap, right? This is a 60-meter cliff that runs on the edge of that delta. There's rocks you can't see that will kill rovers. This is a terrible place to land from an engineering perspective, but really pushed our game. And that's what we did about a year and a half ago.
Propulsion, go. EDL safely, go.
We have deemed Perseverance ready to execute entry, descent, and landing on her own.
Confirmation of entry interface. Perseverance is currently going 5.3 kilometers per second, about 120 kilometers from the surface of Mars. It will start controlling its path to the landing target. Parachute has deployed and we're seeing significant deceleration. The heat shield has been separated. Perseverance now has radar lock on the ground. The back shell has separated. Sky can maneuver has started, about 20 meters off the surface.
Tango Delta, nominal.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin sinking down the pathway.
And you guys get a chance to watch that last year? It was over lunch break for some of you guys, hopefully. All right. By the way, feel free to shout out questions, small group. So if you have anything that I managed to screw up or you don't understand, let me know. I'm an EDL guy, so I'm going to show you a bunch of cool landing pictures before we get to the rest of the sample return. So you'll have to indulge me. But if you want to see what it looks like from the vehicle looking down, what it kind of sees in computer vision, you can kind of take a look at the top right there. And then these other pictures are kind of the map of what we're seeing. That kind of red splotch, weird warped square is what the camera is actually seeing on the way down. We have a system on this vehicle called Terrain Relative Navigation. It's taking pictures on the way down and matching them to these onboard maps that were taken from orbiters. So we're trying to figure out where we are on the way down, so we could find a safe spot amongst all the hazards I was telling you about earlier. This is definitely the most dangerous place we've ever tried to land on Mars. But we found a nice, tiny little parking lot, nice little helipad to land in.
So those are all hazards?
No, what you're seeing there are actually features that the computer vision is identifying. We're looking for high contrast things that kind of have a lot of dark and a lot of white, and we can match them up from the maps that we have on board to what we're seeing at the camera on the way down. Okay. Here's where we landed, down on the bottom right at Butler Landing. Of course, we left a lot of other things on the way down. The vehicle kind of transforms itself on the way down, as you might have seen. Some of the things pop off, like the heat shield, which ended up downwind of us, and the back shell and parachute, which landed kind of upstream of us. But the vehicle landed kind of down there on the edge, about 1.5 kilometers or so away from the edge of the Delta. Pretty much a bullseye for us. Here's what the vehicle looked like from space. A picture of that from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter of the rover there after landing via the sky crane maneuver. I can talk to you all about that for as long as you want about landing. But you came to hear about sample return, so we'll try to get to that. So the Ingenuity helicopter, of course, and the Perseverance rover have been working together in tandem to try to find the right samples to take for us on the way back, and bring on the way back. And that's kind of a good preview, I think, of what we're planning to do with sample return, because we have so many spacecraft that have to work together to be able to do this whole job. So what's special about those samples? Well, getting them from the insides of rocks or from the delta front and all that allows us to kind of peer in and take a look at the chemistry and really the makeup and look for biosignatures as well that might be trapped in those rocks over the millennia. So that's why we want to capture these samples and bring them back to Earth. We've been busy. Mars 120 and Perseverance has taken a number of cores from all over the Jezero crater floor and is beginning to climb the delta as we head up to look at other places. But before doing that, we're actually going to deposit some of these samples down in the crater floor, kind of as an insurance policy, in case we don't get a chance to get to the samples that are on board the rover. We want to split up our eggs and not put them all in one basket. We'll put one basket on the floor of the crater. And that's coming up in a couple months here. But what's so special about bringing those samples here? Why can't we just do that science on Mars? Well, on Earth, we can kind of bring the full range of what we can do. You know, we don't have to miniaturize things into spacecraft, so we take them all the way to Mars. And we have to ruggedize them so that they work in kind of the harsher atmospheres of Mars, or work on the way to Mars. Also, we can fix things, right? If you have instruments that break down here, we can fix them. On top of that, we have the opportunity to continue using those samples across the years while our instrumentation gets better here on Earth. We can build better and better instrumentation and keep using those samples. So we can always use kind of the state of the art of what we can do here on Earth. That's kind of true of what we've been doing with the moon samples. There are still lunar rocks around that are curated down in the Johnson Space Center. If you guys have ever been down to their visitor center, you can go see some of those. And they still use those occasionally in using more current instruments to take a look at them and look at them in even more detail than in the past. This is kind of one of those cases where, you know, when we're looking for the signs of past life, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, that kind of line of thinking. So we want to bring that proof home to Earth, so we make sure we have the best instruments lined up to do that. But to do this all, we need a lot of spacecraft. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about how we envision that this Mars sample return program is going to work. What are all the spacecraft we need to have, what we need to do to get these samples all the way home safely. And so it's a whole bunch of spacecraft that all need to work together in several launches. The first thing that we need, of course, on the ground is the sample retrieval lander, and it's that rocket, right? Every time you think about coming back from somewhere else, we need a launch from somewhere else too. We've never done that before. We never launched from another planet. So that's kind of a big new thing for us, is to be able to land a big rocket on another planet and then take off from there. So that's what the sample retrieval lander is trying to do. Additionally, it's carrying a couple of helicopters that may also help us bring back samples to the sample retrieval lander. Was there a question? Yeah, go for it.
So for the lander, it needs to be brought to Mars on another rocket, and does that take up its own energy? And if it does get the sample, do it just deposit the samples into space and wait till another aircraft scoops it up?
You're ahead of me here. Hang on for just a little bit more, and I'll show you what's going to happen. But yes, we do need to launch this spacecraft there. So this lander is aboard a launch vehicle, and then we'll have to rendezvous with another spacecraft to get home. Perseverance, of course, is already there taking samples. One way that we can get samples to this lander and put them on the rocket, of course, is Perseverance itself. We can use that rover, even though it'll be a bit long in the tooth by the time this lander gets there, to drive right up to the sample retrieval lander, present samples for the retrieval lander to take, and put right in the rocket. That's the best, quickest direct delivery method of a lot of samples. So we're expecting Perseverance to still be around when that lander gets there and deliver the bulk of our samples. If for some reason something has gone wrong with Perseverance, we still have the ability to use these sample retrieval helicopters, which would kind of be the next generation of what we've flown with Ingenuity, that would be able to pick up samples that we leave on the ground and then bring them over to the sample retrieval lander for loading and launching. So we have, just like we said, we kind of had two different baskets. We don't put all our samples in one basket. We're trusting two different ways of getting them back home too, just in case. It's a lot of effort, of course, to do this, and we want to make sure we get them home. Yeah, go ahead.
If Perseverance is still operational, would it pick up the samples left on the floor of the crater and ready for the rocket, or would you still use the helicopter?
The things that are on the surface will be picked up by helicopter. The vehicle right now can carry samples on board inside the rover and can present them pretty easily for the lander to pick up. So that's the plan right now. Any question over there?
I'm just curious. Do you know what are you guys looking for when you're looking at these samples? Like, what are you looking for? Like signs of like kind of like fossilized symbols of life, or maybe like carbon, like oxygen?
Great question. You're asking me an engineer, of course, but I can do my best impression of a
fair enough,
scientist. Part of this is, we're looking for a lot of organics, right? We have a lot of, we're carrying a couple of instruments on Perseverance that are helping us find these best samples. One is Sherlock, which is an organic mapper, and Pixel, another instrument, helps us take a look really at the structure of what we're looking at. So we're looking for certainly lots of organics. That's a good sign. There are other things too, things that like stromatolites that if we see them would be great too. Some evidence that's in shape as opposed to just chemistry. So there's a whole bunch of different things that we can look for as evidence of past life. Okay. So once we have the samples on board the sample retrieval lander and have them loaded on the rocket itself, we have to get it into space, and that's this Mars Ascent vehicle. The sample retrieval lander will actually toss the MAV, the Mars Ascent vehicle, into the air, and it'll air launch into space. So we'll take this, the samples are encased in this orbiting sample canister, kind of the size of a volleyball or so, and carry about 30 samples in there. And we'll send that into space. That's where, and I remember I told you the European Space Agency is playing with us. Their vehicle called the Earth Return Orbiter will be there waiting. I think somebody asked about what happens next, right? So those samples enter orbit. The Earth Return Orbiter will find those samples in space, that orbiting sample canister, and encase it in a system called the Capture, Contain, and Return system. And that's actually built by, or at least primarily built by NASA Goddard and JPL. That's riding along on this Earth Return Orbiter. So inside that system, we take in that orbiting sample canister, kind of orient it the right way, and install it eventually in the Earth Entry System. That's the vehicle that will help it land here on Earth. Remember, we now had two launches, right? A launch to get the sample retrieval lander from Earth to Mars, a launch to get the Earth Return Orbiter and Capture Containment System to Mars, a launch from Mars, and now we have to find a way to land on Earth. And that's part of what's here. You can see it, the OS being loaded in that Earth Entry System. The Earth Return Orbiter itself is a giant electric propulsion powered vehicle. This is one of the biggest electric propulsion satellites ever made. And that'll carry the vehicle, that new entry vehicle with the contained samples, back from Mars. It'll fly back from Mars to Earth.
What do you mean by electric propulsion?
Electric propulsion is the use of electricity, really, to use ion engines. So it's very, that's right. So this has there's 5 big ion engines on it.
Is this a knockoff like the one that went? What was it? Pioneer, one of those that went out of our.
It's similar to the
solar
Bepi
system?
Colombo system that the ESA folks have flown before to Mercury. So it's derived from that. But there are electric propulsion systems used all over the place. Psyche, which is the next mission that we're planning to launch at JPL, is an electric propulsion mission. It's basically a way to convert electricity into propulsion, so it's super efficient, which is really important here as we're taking kind of the long way back from Mars. We don't want to carry all that chemical propulsion there to get back. So we can turn electricity into propulsion. Yeah?
When this whole process happens, to what extent would it be like someone here on Earth controlling these machines, or would it just all be automatic?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? When things are happening at Mars, there's Mars is so far away. Depending on where we are and where Mars is, where we on Earth are and where Mars is, the delay in getting signals back from Mars can range between 5 and 20 some odd minutes. So that's just the time it takes for radio waves to travel at the speed of light from Mars to Earth, and vice versa, right? So to take a 10-minute round trip to see something from Mars and command it back. So nobody's joysticking these things, right? For the most part, the vehicles are running autonomously and running sequences and reacting to what they see from sensors. Okay. Great question, guys. So let's see. Earth Return Orbiter got the sample encased in the Earth Entry System, flies home to Earth. So when it'll fly back to target Earth and drop off that Earth Entry System to head for landing here on Earth. There's a couple of nice places on Earth to land in. We're planning to, or at least right now planning to land in the Utah Test and Training Range, which is where Stardust has landed before, if you are aware of that past mission. So the vehicle is passive, actually, in this case. We wanted something super high reliability, something that's going to work, every time, no matter what we do. So this vehicle will fall without a parachute, without smarts. That's pretty much a cannonball. But it's big enough that it'll land pretty gently, about the speed of a major league fastball, in this really soft area of the Utah Test and Training Range. It's nice and cushy, dry lake bed. Okay? So once we get here with these first sealed samples from another planet, we get a chance to hand them off to the science folks all over the world. So we can send them to labs, both here in the United States and in Europe and around the world to take advantage of what we learned. Question?
Isn't the ocean softer than the desert?
But we also don't want to we want to make sure that we get those samples and make sure that we keep them safe. So a ground recovery is kind of more assured that we won't lose it in the ocean, and it won't, water's not as soft as you think, first of all. And second, it's a bad place to make sure that you find something. So yeah, like I said, get a chance to take a look at it in labs. But also, this is not just a science question, of course, but a future exploration question. We've never gone round trip to Mars. We're going to have to go round trip to Mars if we're thinking about doing that with people someday. So being able to take our first shot out there and bringing something relatively small back that might tell us a bit about our place in the universe is pretty exciting for us. So kind of recapping a little bit, right? This has a lot of firsts, right? There's a lot of things that make me not sleep very well at night for things that we have to do to make this work, right? We have to have that first launch from another planet, right? We've never done that before. The first time we're going to try to meet something in orbit around Mars. Rendezvous is a key problem here, even at Earth. Doing it at Mars would be a big new first-time thing. To find something the size of a volleyball floating around Mars is not going to be easy. It's our first round trip to another planet. We've gone one way, we never come back. So that's a big deal. And bringing those samples back, of course, is another key first. Bringing back samples that we've chosen on the surface of Mars that might tell us what we're looking to find about Mars and our place in the universe. So leaving you with one last thing. If you look carefully at the videos that went by, you might have seen some of the pictures that we've taken on the way down those movies. One of them, of course, was the parachute. You might have seen a weird pattern on that. The pattern on that parachute was a little code to ourselves, a little bit of our own kind of motto on our way in our exploration efforts. And that's to dare mighty things, right? To not be afraid of all those first-time things, to go ahead and step out there, put ourselves out there, much like inspired by Teddy Roosevelt's quote here, right from the Man in the Arena, that we get a chance, even though we might fail, we get a chance to succeed here by taking some chances and sticking our necks out there. So it's something I encourage you all to do too. Okay. Necks out there. So it's something I encourage you all to do too. Okay. Necks out there. So it's something I encourage you all to do too. Okay. Necks out there. So it's something I encourage you all to do too. Okay. Necks out there. So it's something I encourage you all to do too. Necks out there. So it's something I encourage you all to do too. Necks out there. So it's something I encourage you all to do the back shell and parachute will also fly by the back shell and parachute will what's range of Ingenuity? In a single flight, the longest flight that Ingenuity has done is about 700 meters. So, pretty good range of Ingenuity. In a single flight, for the most part, that's energy that Ingenuity has done is about 700 meters. Yeah, great question. So we're expecting a very, very slow approach to that. The good thing about things in space, although they're going to be fast, we're expecting a fast, very, very slow. So relative to each other, relative to Earth, although they're going to be fast, the orbits fast, we expect to come in very slow. So relative to each other, relative to Earth, although they're going to be fast, the orbits fast, we expect to come in very slow. So relative to each other, relative to Earth, although they're going to be fast. Yeah, great question, right? So it's kind of like the sand in the middle of the world, right? Put so many things around it. Yeah, great question. The limiting factor really, it's kind of like the sand comes in a couple different ways. The biggest thing really is that rocket. Great question. The rocket that we have, the liftoff rocket, is pretty much as big as it is that rocket in the sample retrieval way. We can't make a sample retrieval liftoff and still land at just right. So that's kind of the limiting factor that keeps the odds to a certain size. That whole orbiting sample canister, including the sample, can only be orbiter has gotten close enough, try to look for the and try to see if this really comes from the orbiter has gotten out of darkness in space. Try to look for the once we get really close, we have light on the orbiter to be able to darkness in space. Try to take it off and then see that we get once we get really close, and we have light on the orbiter to be able to darkness to the earth. Try to take it off and then see that we get once we get really close, and we have light on the orbiter. Good question. So launch vehicle selection is, of course, competitively chosen. So I can't tell you what kind of launch vehicle. I can't tell you which launch vehicle selection is, of course, right now. But for the most part, we can tell you what heavy class launch vehicle. I can't tell you which launch vehicle selection is, right now. Like for the most part, we can tell you what heavy class. Those five groups. I can't tell you what we use to launch right now. Those Curiosity. For the most part, we can tell you what heavy class. Those five groups. I can't tell you what we use to launch right now. Those Curiosity. For the most part, we can tell you what heavy class. Great question. So what's fancy about electric propulsion is that it's a very tiny little bit of thrust. Great question. So what's fancy about electric propulsion works well is that it's in fact most electric propulsion systems are so low neutral, right? But they're less force than electric propulsion works well. That doesn't work well in most gravity, where you're right under the gravity low or in there's not enough thrust to move any. But when you're out of space, there's no resistance out there. So you can use this. You can use time. There's not enough thrust to move any. Just a little bit of force out of space for a long time. Integrates to a big impulse. That's why we use them in space for the most part. We're never using them in the atmosphere or something like that. That's why we use them in space for the most part. And we use them all the time. There's a lot of geosynchronous satellites here around Earth. That's why we use them very much time for the most part. But it's very low thrust, right? So you can only use it in places like space. That's why we use them very much time for the most part. But it's very low thrust, right? So you can only use it in places like space. That's why we use them very much time. Very low thrust. That's correct. The Earth entry very low. It's passive. So think of a vehicle that even at about 100 kilos or so, and about a meter and a half or so, think of a vehicle that translates to even touching down on the ground at about 180 some odd meters per second, at about 80, 90 meters and a half. So I can't quite throw that fast. Translates to even touching down on the ground at about. So it's about that hard. So you think about a baseball being on the ground. So it's about that hard. But the vehicle's shape is chosen so that it's constantly safe. So you don't need a parachute, travel that or anything like that. to get 14 minutes to go and just get the code. Now I've got to get 6 years to go. So, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Trying to get 14 minutes to go and just get the code. Now I've got to get 6 years to go. So,
Scattered around
get 14 minutes to go. I've got to get 6 years to go. If you're asking, I think you might be asking two different questions. Let me see if I got this right. The first question might be, where are we taking samples in Jezero Crater itself? I think you might be asking two different questions. So far, the vehicle has done a bunch of work for the where we're taking samples below the Delta. I think that might be also taking a few samples. So far, it's going to bring those samples back and take samples every time it takes a sample. So it can leave. So far, it's going to bring them on the ground. It's creating one basket of samples. And then it will head up and out of the crater, actually. The goal eventually is to drive out to this area called Sirtis Major Highlands. That'll allow us to look at a whole other geological area. So we can get a whole range of different types of samples. So that's kind of your first question, where are we finding the Mars? The next question might be, where are we going to pick them up? Right? And it could be on the floor of the crater if we need to go for that basket. Or we can meet the rover somewhere else outside the crater. So that's the idea. Right now we're designing the vehicle so that you can go to either place, either to the crater floor and pick up those samples that are outside the crater, or meet the rover somewhere else. That's the idea. Right now we're designing the vehicle so that you can go to either place, either to the crater floor and pick up those samples that are outside the crater, or meet the rover somewhere else. So that you can go to either place, either to the crater floor and pick up those samples that are outside the crater. Yeah, two of our rovers on Mars are using radioisotope so that you can go. So Perseverance and Curiosity, we crater floor and pick up an operation. So the rest of the systems that we're using here are solar powered. Several fuel later will be solar powered. The reason why we're pretty confident that this will be around when we need it. Exactly, that power source will last for a long time. So pretty confident we'll be around when we need it. Exactly, that power source will last for a long time.
Depends. You want to come?